In fact, there is a sentence like this in the Risale-i Nur collection. It's very beautiful. Someone else's fault cannot be a justification or excuse for your own fault. A very concise sentence.
He expressed it there in a very concise way. Actually, the main reason for all denials is that people deny because they cannot intellectually comprehend these broad matters. For example, people tend to deny fundamental points based on revelation and inspiration, such as God introducing himself through prophets, communicating with people through revelation, sending messages and regulating their lives because they cannot intellectually comprehend these religious matters. Because they cannot fit it into their own reasoning, and by pointing to deviations and abuses of faith, they are easily led into this trap.
So can we add a footnote here and say this? As Muslims, we need to learn about Islam with its evidence, proofs, reasons, and explanations. This is called investigative faith. The Risala-i-Nur collection already instills investigative faith in a person from beginning to end. We absolutely need to attain this investigative faith.
Exactly. Another important aspect is this: the idea that God's greatness prevents him from being concerned with such trivial things. In other words, to put it more simply, they fall into this error by thinking that it is not befitting of God's greatness to be interested in insignificant matters. There's even an example about this. Just as when the sun rises, its light encompasses everything, big or small, and nothing remains outside its grandeur. In the same way, nothing remains outside the power and greatness of the Almighty. In fact, not being concerned with small matters would be a deficiency. Because they cannot comprehend this, they fall into error at this point. God has sent prophets. Miracles and wonders have appeared in the hands of these prophets as evidence. These have become a kind of sign for them. The consensus of the prophets on God's existence, oneness, and the religion is actually a very great proof. Let us think about it this way. Even though the prophets came to very different peoples at very different times, the fact that they all pointed to the same thing, that they all said, God exists, the afterlife exists, and that they all said, we too follow his religion, we too bring news from him, is a great consensus and proof. We can put it this way with an example. Suppose someone says, a great professor came to this city, I saw him. If we haven't seen him ourselves, we might have doubts. But when we hear the same thing from a second person, and imagine that there are 50 or 100 people, all different and who don't know each other, and we hear this news in different places, that such and such professor has come to our city, it is no longer possible for us to have any doubt about that news.
We believe in it as if firsthand. We cannot doubt it.
Or if I were to say, did you hear that there was a fire in such and such place? For example. Then, if everyone you meet at different times all tell you about the same fire, saying such a disaster happened, such a fire broke out, what would you think?
I'd believe it as if I'd seen it completely.
You would believe it. This is what we call consensus, ijma. In other words, the fact that all the prophets at different times agreed on religious matters such as the existence of God and the afterlife. Just think, back then there were no communication devices, no internet like today. The fact that they came at different times and pointed to the same thing is a great proof. Consensus is evidence.